early because we are also delivering the balanced budget 3 days early. By law, it's due November 1st. November 1st falls on a Saturday, so we had the opportunity, first weekday, we had the opportunity to turn it Monday, but we said no, we want to be ahead of time and balanced. We are ahead of time 3 days, and we are ahead of time 2 minutes with a press conference. So we're very excited to do that. We are joined by Lieutenant Governor Diane Primavera, OSPB Director Mark Ferrandino, for any questions you have. As is customary, we have formally submitted this budget to the Joint Budget Committee. You can all now access copies. I don't know if we have them to hand out. Do we have some copies to hand out, or they go online? We're going to be coming through with budgets in just a moment. And I'll walk you through at a high level some of the exciting elements of this budget, our work to fund our schools, our work for fiscal responsibility, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions. Really, since day one, we've been focused on making investments that matter, making Colorado the best place to live and work and raise a family. We've eliminated the underfunding of our schools. This budget continues not only fully funding our schools, but also beginning the new School Finance Act, 30% to meet the students where they have need. We have other investments we'll point out to make Colorado safer, upskill and provide opportunities for Coloradans to get good jobs, make housing more affordable. A little bit of the backdrop, we function under a lot of headwinds, almost as if the federal government's making this hard for us here in Colorado. H.R. 1 and impoundments of money that the state expected and isn't getting. You'll see, for instance, an emergency funding for emergency management that is a backfill of federal funds that we don't know that we will get. The federal shutdown, not only its impact on the economy, but already you've seen the $10 million request for food aid and health banks. We don't expect any additional requests for November, but if the federal shutdown were to extend into December, there'd be other duct tape that became undone, and the state would likely need to try to fill in December in a few key areas. If the shutdown were to continue, I certainly hope that Congress can reopen the federal government by then. So this balanced budget addresses these challenges. We focus on sustainability of Medicaid. We focus on investments in our core areas. Just a few of the sort of guiding and highlighted areas. Still addressing H.R. 1, making the strategic balancing proposals, funding Medicaid, investing in our schools, strengthening opportunities in higher ed and workforce, making Colorado safer, protecting families and public health, and making government more efficient. So this is a little review about where we are, but it's very relevant to where we are today. With the signature of a bill, H.R. 1, it created an $800 million budget shortfall for the current year in Colorado because of conforming tax changes. That's what the special session was all about. Our executive actions. We have not only rebalanced the budget, but of course are now submitting the next year's balanced budget. But I would point out that because of H.R. 1, the budget fell below the Tabor cap for this current year, which means that if we want to continue the senior homestead exemption, we need to do so out of general fund. Now, many of you know I'm a big supporter of the senior homestead exemption, and we have proposed to the legislature a way of doing that and funding that out of general fund, and that is converting Pinnacle for a one-time benefit. Not only would that fully fund the senior homestead exemption and help fund controlled maintenance, it would also help boost the general fund reserve back towards the 15% goal. Our base is 13. We hope that with the Pinnacle conversion, it can get up to closer to 14. In looking at Medicaid sustainability, we have several guiding principles that I've directed my staff to guide our work. One is we want to protect coverage for the 1.2 million Coloradans who depend on Medicaid. We do not want to reduce costs by throwing people off of Medicaid or people losing their coverage. That would be very inhumane. It would also be very short-sighted because it would shift additional uncompensated care to others who pay for insurance. So number one, serve everybody we can. And of course, within that, prioritize high-value services that keep people healthy, collaborate, honor our role as critical coverage, drive efficiency, fight fraud, and promote long-term savings over short-term cuts. So in addition to the budget shortfall caused by H.R. 1, this has been a longer-term problem for that for 10 years. Medicaid has increased at 8.8%. Inflation plus growth, the formula for Tabor, has allowed the state budget to increase at 4.4%. So just to put things in perspective, If 10 years ago, the state had aligned Medicaid growth rates with TABOR cap growth rates, the current budget would have $1.9 billion more for roads, for schools, for preventative care, for education, for transit, for public safety, for all the other things. And of course, this gets worse if we don't fix it. The current trends carry through 2040. As you can see, the increases in Medicaid costs would crowd out essentially everything the state does. We would largely just fund schools and do Medicaid, no money for roads, no money for public safety, no money for housing. So this is what we want to avoid and make sure that everybody who depends on Medicaid can continue to rely on Medicaid. So this budget increases Medicaid by $297 million. It's 5.6% growth, lower than the historical average, but still faster than any other part of the budget, any other large part of the budget. Just to put things in perspective, the increase in Medicaid alone is more than the combined annual budget of 8 executive agencies. And while, of course, the reduction we're making is part of the progress we need to make, we want to really make sure that we can better align Medicaid with the resources we have so people will not be thrown off in the future. And we have been working with a national expert to review and learn from best practices in other states. With regard to education funding, we continue our commitment to fully fund our schools. That's a $276 million funding increase, about $413 per student, commensurate increase in categorical programs, and continue with the implementation of the new School Finance Act to direct resources better to where children are. Strengthening the workforce, both through higher ed, through our Zero Textbooks initiative, which has saved students over $60 million in textbook costs, very good return, ROI, and then helping people with disabilities find work and get support. Making Colorado safer, a number of different items. Obviously, the most exciting for people of which is the implementation of Prop 130. The transfers to local law enforcement begin. That was previously accounted for, but we're very excited those will begin. We also have a number of other areas. The first one, Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, that is largely a federal backfill of something that has to be filled because the federal government has withheld significant Homeland Security and Emergency Management money. Clearly, this is an area we cannot do without. Theoretically, we hope the federal government unfreezes, funds us. We would not need to use state funds for that, but we cannot count on that at this point, so we do need to make sure that we have those funds available for whatever comes our way. Protecting families and advancing public health, the relative guardianship assistance program, applied behavior analysis, and then, of course, upgrading our lab facilities at CDPHE to make sure we can regain EPA certification. Driving government efficiency is a key part of that. There's many examples of that in this budget. I just wanted to highlight a few for you here. READ Act, we can find $1.2 million in administrative savings. We can reduce the mobile home park water quality program by $1 million and still meet all the goals of the law. Consolidate and streamline our behavioral health care networks and align spending with reductions for in-demand for home care allowance. To forward, the Medicaid increase records several balancing proposals. Some are customary. There's always a true-up of TABOR refunds in the following year. It's larger this year because of H.R. 1. Again, if H.R. 1 was signed July 1st, if it was signed June 30th, this would be a very low amount, but because it was signed July 1st, the first day of Colorado's new year, it leads to a larger adjustment of overpayment for the prior year. A couple others, payments from cash funds, just to be clear, it's a lot less than last year in the budget, $26 million. I think last year swept close to $100 million out of cash funds. We always do an assessment of cash funds to make sure they can meet their express goals and what their needs are. This shows the efficiency we're driving across agencies of state government. You can see we look long and hard for savings where we can. We found about $25 million in savings by cutting what we can while continuing to fulfill our responsibilities to implement the law as passed by the people of Colorado here. We propose a general fund reserve of 13%. Most of our balancing proposals are multi-year. Again, we're not against one-year savings, but we care more about the sustainable aspects of the state budget, so we're really focused on multi-year savings. Any new tax credits we want to make sure are paid for. Otherwise, we look at a tax credit the same way we look at it as an expenditure. They effectively will need to be paid for by the legislature. And we want to balance our ongoing responsibilities and investments to really create a bright future for our state. As always, our budget is status quo, meaning it does not assume anything of the voters. They could pass LL or MM. Other things can happen. The reason that the legislature doesn't act on this budget, they act on the January one, is there's a lot that happens between now and January. I like to say this is kind of like a 95% budget. Other things include the finalization of the assessment rate, finalization of the student count, whether LL and MM pass, and then more details on kind of where the economy is going. Does the federal government reopen? Does it not reopen? In which case, forecasts would likely be revised down. So we will be, again, updating this in January, but I think you can get a broad sense of where this is going. And there will be significant changes, but they're directional. Not directional, they're just adjustments based on the next few months. With that, I thank you, and we're happy to take any questions.
Governor, two questions. First on SNAP. We just had two judges strike down not using the reserves for SNAP. What do you know about this, and is this going to lead to any changes here in Colorado where folks might be able to get the benefits back?
We sure hope so. So this action alone does not direct yet the federal government to issue the payments, but it does require the Department of Agriculture to present a plan to the judge by Monday. So we hope it's a step towards funding SNAP cards. I would say we're cautiously optimistic based on this decision that people's SNAP cards could be funded, albeit late. Remember that they would have normally, the work would have begun about a week ago for SNAP payments November 1st. If the work doesn't begin until, in the best case, November 3rd, and it could even be longer than that, even if there's victorious, there will still be a 2-week gap in when those cards are, one to 3 week gap in when those cards are funded. So the first tranche of the funding for food banks is immediately going out, so they can have that food the first week in November. If SNAP is reissued, we will not use that entire $10 million.
And then one question on the budget. I think I read right up there you have a new formula for Medicaid, or maybe new restrictions where you're getting these savings from.
I think,
what are those restrictions on folks with Medicaid? Or
I don't think it's a new formula. I think I have to go back to see which line item you're talking about. One thing we are proposing is that in future governors' budgets, there's a target Medicaid spending rate that aligns with the Tabor formula. So future budgets, we would not, like our budget has a 5.6% increase. Future budgets would have to show a plan to align Medicaid to inflation plus growth. That plan doesn't have to be accepted by the Joint Budget Committee of the legislature, but it's an important exercise to show what sustainability in Medicaid looks like. Did you want to answer that as well, Mark? Okay. Who? Jesse? Oh, Jesse, there you are.
Yeah, I was just, I'm sorry, I missed the answer to the last question, but I don't know if you totally dug into the Medicaid idea. And can you talk a little bit more about what, you said you employed like a national consultant on that? Who's paying for that?
Sure.
Where's it coming from? What are you
I'll let Mark address the work we're doing.
Yeah, so we are looking at what are the trends and how does Colorado compare to other states, and those trends were out. We have went through RFP, hired through Medicaid.